Alright everyone, it's time for Occult Literature, video number 319, The Inner Life and the Tao-Teh-King. This is a 261-page work, so this is full length, and it's a Western sort of interpretation of the basic concepts and premises of Taoism. I'm going to get a little bit into it kind of deeply here because there are multiple interpretations, and this is definitely one of those texts that tends to westernize the East. You get this during this period, 19th and early 20th centuries. First and foremost, there's a link in the description of my edition of this work on Amazon. It is highly recommended. It is a very good, well-written work. Second and third links are to my Blogspot and WordPress. This goes in the religious header, and if you're interested in interpretation of sort of the primary religious documents, I've got dozens of them that are available there, so there's something for the whole family. As long as your family is interested in the occult and the arcane and historical material and folklore, or alchemy, necromancy, raising the dead, and demons. Only a touch of that, don't worry. Anyway, this particular work covers a topic that can be difficult. Number one, we have to realize that some of the more intact versions of the Tao-Teh-King, some of the early ones, weren't even discovered at the time that this was written. Some of them from the last literally half century, some of the more complete versions. The other problem with interpreting Lao Tse's work, and this is assuming Lao Tse isn't an honorary title and that this central individual even existed and isn't just completely apocryphal and mythological. The problem is that the earliest copies were written in a version of Chinese that doesn't have any tens. Now, if you move the period or a comma or a hyphen or whatever in a sentence, sometimes you can change the meaning entirely. The problem is that, therefore, elements of Taoism can be interpreted multiple ways. But the two basic concepts in Taoism, and each one of these is spoken of at length, and there are there's a lot of poetry and secondary sort of Western works, especially by Rousseau and so forth, that are spoken of here. Poetry from Whitman and shit. It's a very romanticist style of writing that we're dealing with here. The two basic concepts, first is naturalness, and I'll get into what that means. Second is non-action. Naturalness doesn't mean it doesn't mean in the fully pastoral sense of taking off your clothes and running through the jungle like an orangutan. It's more like you could describe it, there's no single word for the concept. Naturalness is the closest you can approximate in English. The basic concept would be an appreciation on a deeper spiritual level and being part of and parcel of the natural world. That is, instead of the city and shit like that, being in nature, enjoying it, but on a more than superficial level. That's the basic gist, the basic premise behind it, and this is considered positive. It's got a rough counterpart, kind of, in the concept of a sadhana from Hinduism. Sort of, again, taking off one's shoes and walking barefoot and stuff, and sort of, it's a quasi-spiritual practice. It can be sort of penitent, in a way, but I think Lao Tse's particular definition deviates from that component of the sadhana. The second is non-action. Now, by non-action, it's not meant stagnation or stillness in the sense of doing nothing. It doesn't mean just laying there on the couch. That's not what they're talking about. It's more of a going along with nature without one's own volition interfering. Sort of being as water, to use a cliche from the East. That's the basic premise. Again, you can interpret it, though, multiple ways, and this becomes problematic and leads to dozens of pages of technical filler in this work. It's a very good work, but I would like to point out one thing. I do not believe in Taoism. I do not personally appreciate non-action, including in the sense of non-volition. I don't think that it's... I think the idea of building a society, and this is pretty much explicitly stated here, well, Confucius ruined China, they should have gone with Lao Tse instead. The problem is building a society with that element of pacifism can cause problems. As a very liberty-minded, very ambitious individual, Taoism's definitely not for me. The naturalist side I like. I like the natureness. I like the naturalness. That I can agree with. But not going with the flow. No thanks. I prefer to cut my own path. Just saying. Keep in mind, I do not always agree with the premise of everything that I edit. I've edited works by religious Christians before that talk about the need to burn witches. Well, I don't believe in that, but it's still interesting historically. So this is a very good work. It's one of the better interpretations of Taoism. I suppose I should probably work an edition of the Tao-Teh-King from an early translation. The problem is, it's a fairly short overall text. It's basically short metaphors and symbolism and statements and various qualities. The problem is that if you consult two different translations, you get two different workings. Now, the author, Jerigard, of this work actually worked some of the interpretations himself, fully admitting, by the way, in his introduction, well, I'm not a sinologist, I'm not like totally fluent in Chinese, but I sort of work through it. It leads to a slightly variable situation as far as what Taoism even means. So keeping that in mind, taking with a grain of salt that extra layer of interpretation, it is a very, very good work, and it often waxes poetic in the typical fashion of the 19th and early 20th centuries. So you're getting a lot of secondary material and a lot of storytelling actually here, some of which is kind of sad to tell the truth, a little bit depressive now, but it's definitely worth a read. If you're interested in Eastern spirituality, I've been trying to get more works on Taoism and things of that nature, the I Ching, Japanese folklore and stuff. I'm getting more interested in Asia as a topic, or at least as a subtopic of religious history. So again, link in the description of my edition of this work on Amazon, 261 pages, full length. Second and third links to my books, blogs. There are a very large number of works in the spirituality and religion heading that deal with similar subjects. That's about all. Peace out.